Where your fear lies is where your task is. Truly, freedom is on the other side of fear. Now, the former statement comes to us from Carl Jung. And Carl Jung is he's a notorious person for posing questions that haunt you. Because it's truly a scary notion to believe that all of your tasks lie beyond your fears. But it seems so true. Carl Jung also has a quote where he says that the spirit of fear is evil, or the spirit of evil is fear, and for the hero, the challenge is to overcome fear. And you can only overcome fear with boldness. So if you can overcome that fear with boldness, then the task will make itself apparent to you. Fear is evil. And we need boldness to go into that fear, to take the leap of faith and trust that it'll all work out in the end. And that living a life governed by fear is no way to live. Just because you are alive does not mean that you are living. And if you are living a life governed by fear, I'd venture to say that you are just merely living, but you are not alive. And isn't that the whole goal? Don't we want to truly live a life true to ourselves? And to do that, you must go into the fear. You must embrace the fear. And there's a great reframing, I believe, we should do. And that reframing is, when we think of fear, think of risk. And when you think of risk, think of opportunity. So immediately, if you can accomplish this reframing of the mind, immediately when you feel fear, you can reframe that to opportunity. Because why would you feel fear if there was no risk involved? And how would there be an opportunity if there was no risk involved? As I've said before, risk can be measured with the same rule that opportunity is measured with. If there's, say, this much risk, there's this much opportunity. If there's no risk, there's no opportunity. And where there's risk, there will be fear. And where there's fear, there's our task. And truly, as I said, I don't want to just go over my words back. I don't want to just repeat my words, but freedom is on the other side of our fear. It it truly is. Living a life governed by fear is no way to live life. And once you can realize that living a life with fear. Let me start over. Once once you can acquire this reframing of the mind, I believe life will have more meaning, because your job you are never settled. You never not have another fear. Say you accomplish your goal. Okay, what's the next fear I have? Well, I fear that I'm going to try to scale this business even more. Say you build a business, I'm going to scale this business even more, and it's going to, the foundation's going to crumble because I didn't build a strong enough foundation. And say, there's my task. Build a bigger business. But at the same time, realize if the thought about the foundation is coming to your head, you may need to build some more foundation. But you can scale your business and build foundation at the same time. There's a quote I love, and I'm sorry if a lot of these videos are just quote videos, but I like elaborating on the quotes, so I feel like I'm not just sitting here spouting out quotes. But anyway, when you start to think with the heart and feel with the mind, the river of wisdom will flow. I'll repeat that. When you start to think with the heart and feel with the mind, the river of wisdom will flow. Now, if you're going to jump headlong into fear, I think you have to think with the mind a bit. I mean, you have to think with the heart a bit. Because if you're only thinking with the mind, you can just see all of the downsides, all the worst outcomes. But if you think with your heart, and your heart says, yes, this is scary. Yes, this will be hard. Yes, there's risk involved. But I feel like we should do this. And you can think with your heart and trust your gut. You know, the heart and the gut, I think, have the same brain. You know, if you know what I mean, metaphysically. And once you can start thinking with the heart, I believe the river of wisdom will flow. Because you will start living a life true to yourself, not the life others are expecting of you, and not the life that maybe you've confined yourself to. You may not believe in yourself as much as your heart believes in you, and you may need the support of your heart. And if you just listen to it, take the leaps. Sometimes you just got to do stuff based on hunches. You know, you're like, this doesn't really make sense. It's not logical. It's not rational. But my heart's telling me to do it. I feel like I got to do it. I got to go for it. You know, anyone who's ever done anything worthwhile took a risk and made a decision that wasn't that logical along the way. But you know, they listened to their gut and they followed their heart. And I think you got to get really comfortable with doing that if you're going to take upon the task of jumping into your fears to figure out your task. Because where your fear lies, there is your task. And that goes along with the notion the obstacle is the way. This is a book by Ryan Holiday. But the quote comes to us from Marcus Aurelius: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Truly, our fear is standing in the way, but it becomes the way. Our obstacles, our fears, the things we struggle with, the things we're scared to do. You know, with all these books around me, you'd probably think that I've liked reading for a while, but I haven't. I used to hate reading and writing and anything of that nature. I was in I was in assisted reading in high school. I was in a I've struggled with reading my whole life, and I'm pretty sure I'm dyslexic, self-diagnosed. So take that with a grain of salt, or as you will. But I'm pretty sure I'm dyslexic. But that doesn't stop me from doing what I enjoy to do now. You know, it was an obstacle, but now it's become the way. And yeah, there was fear in it. I mean, it's kind of trivial fear, but fear nonetheless. Most fears nowadays are trivial just because of the nature of society. You know, it's not like not like we have to go hunt bears or anything. It's like, you know, like fears are like talking to a stranger and, you know, doing stuff you're bad at in public. That's like basically all our fears nowadays. But also, walking a path true to yourself is scary. And taking risk and saying, this route isn't bad, but it's not great. I'm going to take this route. that may be catastrophic, but it also may be divine, sensational, amazing, great, my ideal life. You cannot live a dream life if you don't take risk. And we have to learn to love the uncertainty. You have to learn to fall in love with uncertainty, not view it as a anxiety-inducing thing. Because if there was no uncertainty, how boring would life be? We wouldn't even be humans. That's like a paramount to the human existence. All the uncertainty we feel constantly, because the future is doubtful, random, uncertain. The past is dead. All you have now is the present. But we're just living in this fog of uncertainty, where you can't even be certain what's going to happen the next second. But you have to ask yourself, what if it was the other way around? What if there was no uncertainty? It'd be a boring existence, in my opinion. You would never learn anything new. You never experience anything you weren't expecting. You never have good surprises. So you have to learn to appreciate these difficult things in life, like uncertainty, anxiety, fear, failure. You either win or you learn. You never lose. You never lose as long as you don't stay down. You learn. And it's just all just a simple reframing of the mind.